what he's saying is the origin of tragedy is actually religious or spiritual, which I would say makes sense given what we discussed in the last episode. The Apolline and the Dionysiac are related to the worship or the cults of Apollo and Dionysus, and they represent different aspects of the Greek world at the time, and of the psyche and of behavior. And that's generally what gods represented at the time. They were very much archetypal of different aspects of the overall whole that was the society, psyche, the cosmos. Interestingly, there's a almost dualistic aspect to this, or at least how it's framed by Nietzsche, this idea of the Dionysiac and the Apolline. And that sounds like it's deliberate, but also there's, of course, very much this idea of the integration of the two into something more. And if you get two halves and you integrate them together, well, that's representing the whole. And so yeah, that connects up to the idea of the pantheon as a whole representing a united cosmos and the unity of all things, which, of course, while that unity is something that was tapped into through the Apolline or the Dionysiac, it was ultimately tapped into to a greater degree or truer degree through the integration of the two. So, and something that's been pointed out here is that you can't get to what Dionysiac and the Apolline and what Greek tragedy is really about, kind of the combination of Dionysiac and Apolline. You can't get to that if you take the divine and you take the secular or the political and you separate them out in a sort of Descartesian way, and you just sort of Descartesian dualism or something like that. If you do that, you're basically you're either reducing something spiritual and something divine or something religious to mere politics as a tool for political purposes or for the sake of a particular argument you're making, which isn't really doing it justice. It's just kind of bastardizing the whole concept for your own purposes. Kind of egoistic, I'd say, or egotistical or something. Alternatively, it's kind of like you're kind of almost not doing a proper you're not really properly trying to understand the political dynamics, because you're overly idealizing how it works according to a divine or spiritual or religious symbology. Now, it's true that spirituality can bring us some insights about how even the political world might work, but if we get too carried away, we might miss if we're too idealistic about it, we might miss that at least, okay, the awakening might change things a bit, but for a long time, for thousands of years, there's very much, if you look at it in a realist lens, let's say if you look at international relations, for example, realism in international relations, what it says is that every state or polity is seeking as much power as possible, or at least that the actors involved are seeking as much power as possible and controlling the outcome. And technically, that is actually true in terms of how it's worked for a long time. And if you're like ignoring that fact and just saying, okay, well, we can make it all, we can transcend that to be all like towards a spiritual ideal or an ideal of all working together, I mean, I agree with that idea, but it's only really plausible recently because of that transition. Well, actually, I don't know about that. Technically, it was possible for a long time, but it was quite challenging because so many people are stuck in ego, and the overall polity is made up of people. And if a lot of people are in ego, the overall polity will reflect that, and such. And so the dynamics of ego, which are very much power seeking and seeking higher prestige, higher social status, those will play out. And when those dynamics are playing out in a polity, that means that those are the highest levels of it will be those who are most successful at seeking power and higher prestige and social status and wealth, etc. And when that happens, the actual policies and the approaches done by polities or states or whatever will reflect that fact. And that's why you get power seeking, if not service and self dynamics, often at the top levels of corporations and states and kingdoms, historically, as well as in the present. However, what we're going through is a time where we're moving into the age of Aquarius, if not actually in it. The new earth, the foundations of the new earth are being built as we speak, or potentially, we're seeing the beginnings of it. It doesn't mean that right away we're going to be getting the experience of 5D New Earth. Obviously not. But we can begin to see that take shape as people start to see beyond the dualistic opposition of us versus them. And it might be hard to see at the moment because there's still a lot of chaos and a lot of division. But I do genuinely see signs that people are starting to see that there's more to it than that.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you feel like listening to the whole thing fully, that's also uploaded. And without further ado, bye for now.